Run! Get to the car! He's coming after us! The words tore out of my throat before I even realized I was screaming them. Gravel scattered beneath my sneakers as I sprinted into the dark, the cold night air clawing at my lungs. Behind me, I could hear the frantic pounding of footsteps. 2 sets, not just mine. Jordan's voice cracked in panic.
Don't slow down! Don't you dare slow down!
And somewhere further back, Maria was sobbing, each breath a sharp gasp as she tried to keep up. The 3 of us were tearing through the night toward the old sedan parked crooked at the edge of the lot. Its headlights were dead, its rusted frame barely visible in the dim moonlight. But it was the only hope we had of getting out of here alive. And then I heard it. The sound that made every hair on my body rise, the sound that froze my blood mid-run. The rev of a chainsaw ripping through the silence. That guttural, mechanical roar split the air, closer than it should have been. And when I risked a glance over my shoulder, I saw him. Not just a man, a thing. Towering, broad-shouldered, his face hidden behind another face, stitched, sagging, pale. A mask of someone else's skin. The chainsaw growled in his hands, sputtering sparks of exhaust as he lumbered after us, dragging the teeth of the blade against the gravel so sparks danced at his feet. Maria screamed, a broken sound that cut through the night. I wanted to shout back to her, tell her to keep running, but my throat was already burning. My body was nothing but instinct, legs pumping, arms clawing through the air, eyes locked on the car ahead. The distance felt impossible. The lot stretched like an endless field, and with every step I could feel him getting closer. The growl of the saw grew louder, closer, almost vibrating through my bones. I was running to the car, I whispered to myself, as if saying it out loud would make it true. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew. He was faster than he looked, and sooner or later, one of us was going to fall. Let me explain how it got to this point. You don't just end up running for your life from a lunatic with a chainsaw out of nowhere. No, things don't just break that way in an instant. There's always a beginning, and ours was as normal as it gets. It started with a road trip, just me, Jordan, and Maria. The 3 of us had been talking for months about taking a weekend to get out of the city. No deadlines, no constant noise, no one breathing down our necks. Just trees, air, and maybe a lake if we were lucky. Jordan managed to borrow his uncle's old sedan, a rusty thing that rattled whenever we hit 60, but it ran, and that was good enough. Maria found us a cabin online, cheap, rustic, tucked away at the edge of some woods. She grinned when she showed us the listing, claiming it would be Instagram perfect. Jordan and I didn't care about the filters. Cheap and far away was good enough for us. The drive out was long but almost peaceful. Winding roads, fields that stretched out forever, little towns that passed in a blink. With each mile, it felt like we were leaving behind all the weight we carried back home. By the time we reached the gas station at the edge of town, the sun was sinking. We stopped to fill up, and that's where we met the first stranger. He was an older man, maybe late 50s, with a baseball cap and a warm smile. He held the door for Maria, told us we'd picked a good spot for the weekend. He even gave us directions to cut a few minutes off the drive. There was nothing off about him, just the kind of small-town friendliness you don't see much anymore. When we finally pulled into the lot near the cabin, there were people there too. A family huddled around a campfire, roasting marshmallows. 2 fishermen lugging a cooler back toward their truck. A young couple struggling with tent poles, laughing so loud we could hear them even with our windows rolled up. Everyone waved. Everyone smiled. Maria whispered, half joking, "This feels like some postcard. You know, the kind you buy in those tacky gift shops. Greetings from paradise." Jordan laughed, and even I had to admit she wasn't wrong. The cabin itself was nothing to brag about. The porch leaned a little, the paint was chipped, and the steps groaned under our weight. But inside, it was better. Wooden walls, a stone fireplace, a small kitchen that smelled faintly of dust but worked just fine. We dropped our bags, lit a fire, and told ourselves this trip was exactly what we needed. That first night was quiet. Not the eerie kind of quiet you hear about in stories. Just the normal hush of a place untouched by city life. Crickets chirping, a breeze brushing through the trees, the crackle of wood burning in the fireplace. Jordan stretched out on the couch, beer in hand, grinning like he'd just found heaven. Maria sat cross-legged on the rug, sketching the cabin in her notebook, her hair glowing in the firelight. I leaned back in the old armchair, legs sore from the drive, eyes heavy, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe we'd made the right call. There were no warnings, no strange looks, no shadows moving where they shouldn't. Just peace, if only it had stayed that way. The next day passed without incident. We slept in late, cooked eggs and toast on the tiny stove, and spent the afternoon down by the lake. The family from the night before was still there, kids splashing water while their parents shouted warnings that went ignored. The young couple strung fairy lights around their tent, arguing over whether the bulbs were tangled. The fishermen gave us a nod as they dragged their cooler up from the shore. It was all so normal. But as the sun began to set, something changed. The sky bled orange and purple, and the shadows of the trees stretched longer and longer across the ground. We lit the fireplace again, and for a moment, everything felt just as cozy as it had the night before, until Maria frowned. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Jordan looked up, a beer halfway to his lips. "Hear what?" "Exactly," she whispered. "Nothing." At first I thought she was exaggerating, but then I realized she was right. No more laughter from the family, no distant music from the couple's tent, no sound of fishing lines whirring or coolers opening. Just silence. We stepped outside onto the porch. The family's fire pit was still there, embers glowing faintly, but the camp chairs were empty. The marshmallow sticks lay on the ground, one of them still sticky at the tip. The couple's lantern was dark, their tent zipped, no sign of movement. The fisherman's spot was abandoned too, their tackle boxes closed, cooler gone, as if they'd packed up and left without a word. But we hadn't heard cars. We hadn't heard anyone drive off. The woods pressed in closer somehow, the silence almost humming in our ears. Jordan scratched his head, forced a laugh. Guess everyone just turned in early. He said it like he didn't even believe it himself. We lingered a little too long outside, waiting for something, anything, to break the quiet. But nothing did. Not a voice, not a footstep, not even the rustle of an animal in the trees. When we finally went back inside, the cabin felt different, smaller. The walls seemed to lean closer, the fire snapping louder than before. Maria sat by the window, peering out into the dark, while Jordan stretched out on the couch like he was determined not to care. I couldn't shake the feeling, though. It wasn't just quiet. It was like the whole place had emptied itself, leaving only us behind. And as the night deepened, I couldn't stop wondering, why? We tried to convince ourselves it was nothing. Families leave campgrounds all the time. Couples pack up. Fishermen head home. That's what we told ourselves as the night settled in, though none of us believed it. The silence outside pressed harder than the walls around us, like the whole forest was holding its breath. By midnight, Jordan was stretched out on the couch, snoring lightly, though I could tell it was forced, his kind of half-sleep when he didn't want to admit he was still awake. Maria had pulled a blanket over herself by the fire, sketchbook closed but clutched in her hands like a shield. I sat in the armchair, eyes on the flames, stomach twisted in knots. And then I heard it. At first, just the faintest scuff outside. A drag of gravel, so soft I thought I imagined it. My breath caught. Then it came again, sharper, heavier. Footsteps. Someone was running outside. I leaned forward, straining to hear. The sound circled the cabin, fast, heavy, erratic. The boards on the porch groaned under the weight of something sprinting past the windows. I stood halfway, heart pounding, when Jordan jerked awake. "What the hell?" Maria bolted upright, eyes wide. "You hear that too?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. For a moment, none of us breathed. Then it came. Laughter. Faint at first, stretched and broken, drifting through the trees. Not joyful, not human in the way laughter should be. It scraped against the night air, too sharp, too long, like whoever was laughing didn't know when to stop. Maria's hand clamped onto mine. "Tell me that's not real." "It's real," I whispered. My voice cracked. Jordan rubbed his face, trying to act braver than he was. "It's just some drunk campers screwing around, trying to scare us." But his eyes betrayed him, wide, darting toward the windows. The laughter came again, louder this time, bouncing off the trees, disorienting. We couldn't tell where it was coming from. It felt close, then distant, then right outside the door. We crowded near the fireplace, whispering so low we could barely hear each other. Should we check?" Maria asked. Jordan shook his head. "Hell no. That's what they want." The words didn't comfort me. They only made me realize what he wasn't saying. They, whoever they were. Minutes dragged like hours. Every creak of the cabin made us jump. Every snap from the fireplace sounded like a gunshot. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the laughter stopped. No footsteps, no voices, nothing. We sat there frozen, ears straining, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. But the silence stayed. Finally, Jordan stood, restless, running his hands through his hair. "Screw this. I'm gonna look outside." "Don't," Maria hissed, clutching his sleeve. But he was already moving, creeping toward the window by the porch. He pulled the curtain back a sliver, just enough to peek through. I held my breath. "What do you see?" I whispered. He stared a long time, then let the curtain drop. His face was pale. "Nothing." But the way he said it didn't sound like relief. It sounded like fear. We didn't turn the lights off that night. We left every lantern burning, the fire stoked high. None of us slept. Maria sat pressed against me, head resting on my shoulder, sketchbook forgotten on the floor. Jordan sat with his back against the door, baseball bat he'd found in the closet gripped tight in his hands. The silence stretched on, hour after hour. No more laughter, no more footsteps. Just the three of us, trapped in that cabin, waiting for something we couldn't see but knew was out there. And the longer the night went on, the more I realized whatever was in those woods wasn't playing a prank. It wasn't drunk campers. It was watching us. And sooner or later, it was going to make its move. None of us slept. The lanterns burned until their fuel hissed low. The fire popped and spat, and every single creak of the cabin made us flinch. Jordan sat against the door with that old bat in his hands, daring anything to come through. Maria leaned into me, her eyes glassy from exhaustion, but wide open. And then, just as my head started to dip, just as my body begged to give in, I heard it. Knock. We all froze. Another knock. Not hard, not angry, slow, almost polite. "Who's there?" Jordan barked, voice shaking despite himself. Silence. Then 3 more knocks, harder this time. Maria whimpered, clutching my arm. "Don't open it," she whispered. Jordan stood, bat raised. "If this is some kind of joke, you'd better cut it out." Before he could finish, the knocking stopped. The cabin sank back into silence, but the quiet was worse now, charged. My heart thumped against my ribs like it wanted out. Minutes passed. Then came the sound. Faint at first, distant. The low, guttural rev of an engine tearing through the night air. A chainsaw. It carried on the wind, starting and stopping, sputtering like whoever was holding it wanted us to know it was there. Maria's nails dug into my sleeve. No, 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 no. Jordan's knuckles whitened on the bat. It's a prank. Has to be. But even he didn't believe it. The sound cut off. Silence again. Then the walls shuddered. Something slammed against the side of the cabin, rattling the thin glass panes. Another thud came from the back, shaking dust from the rafters. Someone, or several someones, were testing the walls, the windows, the door. "They're trying to get in," Maria whispered, her voice breaking. "Stay away from the windows," I hissed. But the rattling only got worse. A window frame jolted, glass rattling in its slot like invisible hands were prying at it. The porch groaned under shifting weight. Then, silence. All at once, everything stopped. We sat there in the suffocating stillness, too afraid to breathe. My ears rang in the quiet, straining for the next sound. It came as a whisper, not words, just a low hum, almost like laughter again, faint, floating, everywhere at once. "I can't take this," Jordan muttered. He marched to the door, bat raised, chest heaving. "Don't!" I hissed, but he was already unbolting the lock. The night air poured in when he cracked the door, cold and heavy. We stepped onto the porch together, hearts pounding, the firelight behind us throwing long shadows across the trees. At first, nothing. Just the lake glinting faintly under the moon, the forest still as a painting. Then, another sound. The rev of the chainsaw, closer now. So close it vibrated in my chest. I turned my head slowly toward the tree line. That's when I saw him. Tall, broad. The chainsaw gripped in both hands, teeth spinning, spitting sparks as it scraped the ground. His face, no, not his face, someone else's. A pale, sagging mask of skin, stitched crudely, hanging over his features like a second layer. The empty holes where eyes should have been stared straight at us. Maria gasped, a strangled sound that cut the night in two. The figure tilted his head like he was studying us. Then he lifted the saw, revving it high, the roar splitting the silence into shreds. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever had happened to the other campers, whatever had emptied this place, this was it. He was the reason we were alone, and he wasn't done with us. For a moment, none of us moved. The figure stood at the tree line, chainsaw in his grip, the engine snarling and sputtering like some animal straining at its leash. His mask of skin glistened in the moonlight, seams of stitches pulling across a face that didn't belong to him. Maria whispered, That's not real." Her voice was thin, trembling, as if saying the words out loud would undo what we were seeing. Jordan's bat dipped at his side, his jaw clenched, eyes darting, searching for some trick, some hidden camera. "It's a costume," he muttered. "Has to be. Some sick bastard trying to mess with us." But I couldn't look away. My body refused to accept it, but my gut already knew. There was nothing staged about this. The way the mask sagged, the way the laughter still clung to the air like static, the way the chainsaw's teeth chewed sparks from the gravel as he dragged it forward. "This isn't a prank," I whispered. My throat burned just to say it. "This is real." The figure tilted his head like he'd heard me. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. The chainsaw roared to life. That sound ripped through the night, louder than anything I'd ever heard, vibrating the air, drowning out thought. Maria screamed, stumbling backward onto the porch. Jordan cursed, gripping the bat with both hands, his whole body shaking. The chainsaw man broke into a sprint. That was it. The last second of denial, shattered. We bolted. Maria shoved past me, scrambling through the cabin door. Jordan backed in last, slamming it shut just as the chainsaw's blade carved sparks against the porch rail. The cabin shook as the saw tore into the wood outside. Boards splintered. The windows rattled in their frames. "Go! Go!" I shouted, grabbing Maria by the arm. We stumbled across the cabin, tripping over our own bags, knocking over the lanterns that threw wild shadows across the walls. Jordan dragged the table in front of the door, shoving it against the frame just as the blade screeched across it from the other side. The sound was unbearable, metal teeth grinding, wood screaming, the mask, the chainsaw, the way he moved. There was no more room for disbelief now. This was happening. Maria sobbed, hands clutching her head. "We have to get out. We have to get out." "Through the back," I yelled. Door that led to the rear porch. The night air hit us like a slap, cold and sharp. For one fleeting second, I thought maybe, just maybe, we could make it. The car wasn't far, if we ran fast enough, if the keys didn't fumble. Then the chainsaw screamed again. I whipped my head back toward the trees, and there he was, the man in the mask, not at the front anymore, at the back, waiting. The chainsaw roared in his hands, smoke spitting from its exhaust. His head tilted just enough for me to see the black voids behind the stolen skin. Maria froze beside me, her breath ragged. Jordan's bat clattered to the porch floor. For one endless second, we stood there, staring at him, trying to force sense into something that had none, trying to believe this wasn't real. But it was real. And when he raised the saw and stepped forward, all we could do was run. "Run! Run! Get to the car! Get to the car! He's coming after us!" The words ripped out of me before I could even think them. Gravel crunched beneath our shoes as we sprinted into the dark, the chainsaw's roar splitting the night into jagged pieces. Maria was in front, her breath ragged, arms pumping desperately. Jordan was just behind me, swinging the bat uselessly at shadows, his voice breaking as he screamed for us to go faster. The car loomed ahead, our salvation, our only chance. But it felt impossibly far, every step weighed down by fear. Behind us, the chainsaw shrieked louder, closer, chewing sparks out of the gravel as it tore the ground. The man in the mask was gaining, each heavy footfall shaking the night. I could taste blood in my throat. My lungs burned, my vision blurred, but I couldn't stop. None of us could. Maria reached the car first, yanking at the handle. "It's locked," she cried. The keys. I had the keys. My hands fumbled in my pockets, slick with sweat, trembling so hard I dropped them. They hit the ground with a jingle that sounded like a death sentence. "Pick them up!" Jordan roared. I dropped to my knees, fingers scrabbling at the dirt. The chainsaw wailed behind me, closer, closer. Then came the scream. I looked up just in time to see the blade sink into Jordan's side. His body jolted, blood spraying in a violent arc across the gravel. He swung the bat once, weakly, before collapsing, the chainsaw chewing through him with a sound I'll never forget. Maria screamed, her voice raw, shrill, inhuman. I grabbed the keys, tears blurring my vision, and staggered to my feet. "Get in the car!" I shouted. She didn't need telling twice. We tumbled inside, slamming the doors, fumbling with the lock as the chainsaw roared outside. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the keys again, but somehow I jammed them into the ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, too slow, too damn slow. The mask appeared at Maria's window, pale and sagging, stitched and sagged across the man's face. He slammed the blade against the glass, cracks spiderwebbing across it, shards falling into her lap. She screamed as sparks spit into the cabin of the car. "Come on, come on!" I begged the engine, twisting the key harder. The car roared to life, headlights flaring. The chainsaw screeched again, tearing another line across the window. The glass gave way, a shard slicing into Maria's arm. She screamed, blood blooming across her sleeve. I slammed my foot on the gas. The tires squealed, gravel flying. The car lurched forward. The chainsaw man staggered back, the blade carving empty air as we shot past him. Maria clutched her arm, blood soaking through her shirt, her sobs mixing with the roar of the engine. I couldn't look at her, couldn't look back, because Jordan was still there, on the ground, in pieces. The chainsaw's roar faded behind us as we tore down the road, the cabin and the lake shrinking in the rearview mirror. But his mask stayed with me. Those hollow eyes, that tilted head, the sound of laughter echoing through the trees. Maria's blood dripped onto the seat between us, hot and sticky. She was alive, but barely. I tightened my grip on the wheel, tears streaming down my face, and pushed the car faster into the night. We escaped, but not all of us. And I knew deep down that whatever he was, whatever had emptied that campground, he wasn't finished. Not yet.